Welcome back to Great Day St. Louis. It's hard to heal a strained relationship. Whether you've had a fight with a friend or your marriage is going through a rough patch, where do you start? Here with advice for getting a relationship back on track is life coach Judy Ryan. Judy, good morning. Welcome back to you.
Thank you.
We're just talking a little bit about this during the break. You've got, right out of the gate, we're going to talk about some of the common things that put a strain on a relationship. And I was commenting on how none of these things are things that our partner is doing.
Exactly.
These are all things that we're sort of bringing to the table.
Yes, that's the wisest thing you could know. One of the things that we do that cause so many strains in our life is to not be aware of what's going on within ourselves. And you hear a lot about emotional intelligence. Most people don't really know what that is. But emotional intelligence is simply being self-aware, being able to manage yourself, being aware of others, and being able to manage the relationship with others. And so a lot of times we're reacting and we're retaliating and we're taking things personally,
right, rather
than just being aware that we're triggered. So, and it doesn't even have to be somebody we're close to. It could be somebody in the grocery store, or somebody in the
really?
On the street.
Well, and it's a lot of it is the words you choose, the language you use, I guess, when you start to have these conversations.
Yes. When we're reactive, we tend to speak too quickly. We tend to speak from a problem orientation instead of really settling down and coming from that place of wholeness within ourselves.
Okay, so that's step one, is think about how you're approaching the conversation.
Right.
But then we need some tips to try to, if we really are going through a rough patch, we got to find a way to get this thing back on track here.
Yes, yes. Well, one of the things that helps when you slow down is to get focused on your intention. Intention is actually one of the Adlerian psychology tips that I want to give, is that intention equals results. So what you can know is that if I get a certain result, I have a certain intention. So let's say you're going out with your wife and you decide we're going to have this wonderful romantic evening, but you end up in a fight and you're sleeping on the couch. So
not that would ever happen. Heaven forbid.
Your intention might have been to have a really close evening,
right,
but if your result is that you had a fight and you end up in a distance, it just means that something became more important to you, like being right in an argument or something. So you want to be clear about, if I'm not getting the result I want, step back and take a look at our intention, and that's helpful.
I like that you mentioned the possibility of, and this is just to sort of get in the right mindset, I think, but you mentioned thinking back to when the relationship was young, when
yes,
you first met, when you were sort of falling in love. How does that help with the here and the now?
Yes, when you're, great question. Appreciative questions you can ask yourself are, when was I happiest with this person? What was it that made me want to be connected to them in the first place? What was working? What are the stories of that? How did I feel? What was I saying about this person? What were they saying about me and others saying about us? Whether it's romantic or friendship. But another question could be, what is working? What's good about the relationship, even though it's in a bit of a strain? And a really helpful forward-thinking question is, what would this relationship look like at its best, so that I can pull it back on track?
Medical doctors like to tell us that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I guess this same could be said in relationships, preventing these problems in the first place.
Yes, and one of them is to notice when there's a strain, to be willing to check in regularly, to even see if there is one. Jack Canfield is the person I heard this from first. He would ask his wife, hey, tell me what you would give our relationship on a scale of 1 to 10.
That's
brave
a bold
person.
question to ask
But
your
he
spouse.
kept his relationship healthy, because if it wasn't a 10, if she'd say a 7 or an 8, he'd say, what would make it a 10 for you? And that's loaded with information. And I tell parents to ask their kids that, and teachers to ask their students that, what would make it a 10? And then another important point would be to make sure that when there is strain, that you don't avoid the elephant in the room, and that if you have trouble communicating through the issue, get the help you need so that you're communicating effectively.
If we never address it, it's never going to get taken care of.
It just keeps building, right?
That would make a lot of sense. Easier said than done, but we got to try. Judy, thank you very much.